Mr. Secretary, for our audience, let me begin by emphasizing that the Red Sea region is not just a stretch of water on the map. It is a critical transit point for global shipping, serving as the lifeline for commerce between continents. In recent years, this vital corridor has come under threat from the Houthis, a militant group based in Yemen, whose activities have increasingly disrupted transit routes that are essential to the global economy. These disruptions have been anything but minor. Over the past 18 months, the Houthis have attacked United States naval vessels 174 times and have also been involved in 145 assaults on commercial shipping. Their repeated and brazen actions, utilizing sophisticated, guided anti-ship weaponry, have evolved the situation from isolated incidents into a systematic effort that effectively functions like a band of pirates, imposing a toll on one of the world's most important shipping lanes. The president, when he announced the strikes, cited these growing concerns as the impetus for our military response. According to him, the underlying rationale is clear. We simply cannot allow any group, regardless of their size or origin, to control or threaten the free flow of commerce through this pivotal region. This is not merely about the security of U.S. naval vessels. It is about ensuring that the economic lifeblood of the world, global shipping, remains unimpeded. The president made it abundantly clear that we will not permit the Houthis or any other group with similar capabilities to continue their relentless campaign of harassment and intimidation. In his words, we are not going to have these people controlling which ships can go through and which ones cannot. His administration's actions are intended to be sustained until the Houthis no longer have the capability to impose their will on this crucial waterway. When asked how long this campaign would last and whether it might eventually involve ground forces, the answer was both definitive and measured. The campaign is not envisioned as a temporary or one-off action, but as a continuous operation that will persist until the underlying threat is neutralized. As the president put it, it will go on until they no longer have the capability to do that. This means that the duration of the campaign is directly tied to the military and logistical capacity of the Houthis. Every missile intercepted, every launch site dismantled, and every key operative removed from action serves to chip away at their overall capability. And while the possibility of ground raids was mentioned, there was no indication that such measures were planned or imminent. The emphasis remains squarely on precision strikes designed to degrade and eventually eliminate the enemy's ability to control this vital sea lane. Our discussion naturally turns to the intelligence on which these decisions are based. The president highlighted that previous strikes, primarily executed as reactive measures to missile launches, have now been transformed into a proactive campaign. These earlier strikes were essentially retaliatory, aiming to hit a missile launcher after the Houthis fired a single missile. However, this latest series of actions represents a shift in strategy. It is not about responding to individual attacks anymore. It is about denying the Houthis any sustained ability to threaten global In essence, it is an effort to dismantle their entire operational infrastructure. This is not merely symbolic. It is a strategic campaign intended to remove the enemy's capacity to function at all. When pressed on whether U.S. intelligence provided new, more detailed information that would enhance the success of these strikes, the answer was clear. While the previous strikes were reactive, the current operation is designed to be relentless and systematic. Every key element of the enemy's capability, be it a missile launcher, an operational facility, or a group of commanders, is being targeted, with some of the key figures reportedly no longer with us as a result of these actions. The administration stressed that this is not a message meant for the Houthis alone. It is also a stern warning to any nation or group that might consider supporting them. The president was explicit in linking the actions of the Houthis to their external sponsors, most notably Iran. According to U.S. intelligence, Iran has played a significant role in enabling the Houthis. This support is not limited to providing basic supplies. It extends to offering advanced guidance, sharing critical intelligence, and supplying the kind of sophisticated weaponry that has allowed the Houthis to carry out their attacks with alarming precision. The president warned that any country that continues to support these activities is, by extension, complicit in the destabilization of global shipping lanes, a situation that affects not just American interests, but the security of nations around the world. This brings us to the broader geopolitical context in which these actions are taking place. Alongside the military campaign in the Red Sea, there are parallel diplomatic maneuvers involving other nations. For instance, there has been considerable discussion about the potential for a broader military confrontation, with some voices speculating whether ground forces might eventually be deployed. However, as of now, there has been no definitive indication that a ground invasion or direct occupation is part of the current strategy. The focus remains on precision strikes and air operations that have already produced tangible results. The underlying logic is simple. If the Houthis lose their operational capabilities, then the threat to global shipping will gradually dissipate. This is a long-term commitment, and the campaign will persist until the Houthis are rendered incapable of any further interference. Another major element in this multifaceted strategy is the economic and diplomatic pressure being applied by the United States on a global scale. The president and his administration view the issue of global trade imbalances as intimately connected with national security. For decades, the U.S. has allowed a status quo in global trade that has not always been fair, and the president has made it clear that this imbalance must be rectified. A key aspect of this policy is the use of tariffs. Recently, there have been heated discussions about tariffs imposed on various countries, including Canada, Mexico, and even the European Union. The president's rhetoric, at times pointed and forceful, emphasizes that the current global trade system is skewed in favor of other nations, with many countries enjoying benefits that come at the expense of American industry and workers. In the interview, the discussion turned to whether these tariff policies might inadvertently benefit countries like China, which, despite being embroiled in a trade war with Canada and others, could ultimately emerge as a winner if the cost of dealing with the United States becomes too high for its trade partners. The response from the administration was one of confidence. The president argued that the current global trading system has long been a situation where American industries and workers have been disadvantaged. By resetting the baseline of global trade to ensure that it is not only free but also fair, the United States aims to reinvigorate critical domestic industries such as aluminum, steel, semiconductors, and automobile manufacturing. These are sectors that are not only vital for economic prosperity but also crucial for national security. The president underscored that ensuring a level playing field is essential for maintaining the industrial capabilities that have long been the backbone of the nation's economic strength. Furthermore, the president explained that the strategy is not aimed at isolating any particular country. Instead, it is about establishing a new equilibrium that recognizes mutual benefit. The president envisions bilateral negotiations with various nations based on this new baseline of fairness. In his view, trade is most beneficial when both sides produce products that the other does not, fostering a balanced economic relationship. While some critics have characterized these measures as emotionally driven or even petty, citing, for example, the mention of tariffs on items like champagne, the administration dismisses such criticisms. The tariffs, in the president's perspective, are a form of necessary retaliation designed to correct long-standing imbalances. When one nation imposes tariffs, the affected country naturally responds in kind. This tit-for-tat dynamic is not a sign of irrational behavior. Rather, it is a deliberate strategy to force a re-examination of the global trading system and, ultimately, to secure fairer terms for all parties involved. At the same time, there is an underlying concern about the domestic implications of these trade policies. The president has frequently lamented the deindustrialization that has affected large parts of the country over the past few decades. The decline of manufacturing industries in regions that were once the heart of American industry, the so-called Rust Belt, is a matter of national concern. The president's approach is intended to reverse these trends by ensuring that domestic industries are given the economic incentives they need to thrive. It is not simply a matter of imposing tariffs for the sake of economic posturing. It is about creating an environment in which American workers can once again secure well-paying jobs and rebuild the country's industrial base. The president's rhetoric on this subject is unapologetically blunt. We have deindustrialized this country, and we will not stand for it any longer. In his view, restoring the country's industrial strength is not only an economic imperative, but also a matter of national security. In the midst of these complex international and economic issues, there is also the matter of domestic security and immigration policy. Recently, a controversial decision was made to revoke the visa of a student at Columbia University. This decision, which has sparked heated debate, was based on the fact that the student had expressed support for pro-Hamas activities, a stance that, according to the administration, directly contravenes the fundamental terms under which a visa is issued. When an individual applies for a visa to enter the United States, they are essentially seeking permission to visit the country temporarily as a guest. By doing so, they make certain declarations regarding their intentions. In this case, the students expressed intention to participate in events or activities sympathetic to Hamas was deemed incompatible with the country's foreign policy and national security. The administration's response to this situation was unambiguous. When you apply for a visa, you are a guest, the president asserted, emphasizing that the terms of that guest status must be respected. If someone enters the country and then engages in activities that undermine U.S. interests, such as promoting terrorism, participating in vandalism, or inciting unrest, they are violating the trust that was extended to them when the visa was granted. It is not merely a matter of political opinion, it is a matter of adhering to the legal and contractual obligations that come with a visa. The decision to revoke the visa was therefore based on a clear set of criteria. The applicant had lied about their intentions during the visa application process, and as a result, they could no longer be allowed to remain in the United States. The administration made it clear that this policy is not aimed solely at one particular group or ideology. We want to get rid of terrorists in our country, the president stated bluntly. Whether someone is affiliated with Hamas or any other group designated as a terrorist organization, the rules are the same. There is no room for exceptions when national security is at stake. This uncompromising stance extends to all individuals who violate the conditions of their admission into the country. The administration's policy is one of zero tolerance. If you are here as a guest, you must abide by the rules. If you do not, you will be asked to leave. This is not just about one student at Columbia. It is about establishing a precedent that underscores the importance of national security above all else. The president also highlighted the irony in how some of the very same critics who advocate for free speech and the protection of controversial viewpoints are quick to condemn social media companies for what they perceive as censorship. You tell me, he challenged. How can we defend the First Amendment if we allow those who undermine it to remain in our country? The implication is clear. When it comes to national security, the rules must be applied uniformly, regardless of the political or ideological leanings of the individual in question. In addition to these measures, the administration is also taking steps to designate certain groups as terrorist organizations. For instance, the Trinidad Agua Gang was officially designated as a terrorist organization, a move that underscores the administration's commitment to cracking down on any group that poses a threat to national security, regardless of its origins or affiliations. This approach is part of a broader strategy that seeks to ensure that the United States remains a safe and secure place for its citizens, free from the destabilizing influence of extremist elements, both domestic and foreign. Returning to the broader context of international diplomacy, the administration is also engaged in delicate negotiations with other nations. Recent meetings with key figures, including discussions with Russian officials and the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, have been part of an ongoing effort to de-escalate conflicts and bring about a ceasefire in areas where prolonged military engagements have taken a heavy toll on all sides. One of the central questions during these negotiations has been whether the conflict, described as a complex 3-year war stretching along a lengthy military front, can be brought to an end. The administration's plan is twofold. First, to establish a ceasefire that stops the immediate bloodshed, and then to bring all parties to the negotiating table to forge an enduring peace agreement. This process, the president acknowledged, will be anything but simple. Ending a conflict that has persisted for years requires not only military measures, but also a commitment to diplomacy and compromise from all sides involved. Nevertheless, the administration remains optimistic that with sustained effort and careful planning, an enduring resolution can be reached, one that respects the needs and concerns of all parties while ensuring that violence and instability do not continue to disrupt the lives of millions. In discussing these international efforts, it is important to note that the president's rhetoric has always been unyielding when it comes to protecting American interests. Whether it is through direct military action, economic measures, or diplomatic negotiations, the central theme remains constant. America's security and prosperity come first. The president's actions in the Red Sea, his firm stance on trade imbalances, and his uncompromising approach to immigration and national security all form parts of a comprehensive strategy designed to restore American strength and ensure that the nation is not exploited by others, whether through unfair trade practices or by harboring individuals who seek to undermine its core values. As we have seen in the discussions about tariffs and trade, the president is not merely reacting to immediate provocations. He is attempting to recalibrate the entire global economic system in a way that benefits American industry. For decades, other nations have been allowed to take advantage of an American market that has been treated as a given, with little recourse for industries that have suffered as a result. The president's plan, therefore, is to reset the baseline of global trade, one that is based on fairness, mutual benefit, and the recognition that American industry deserves to be treated as a partner, not as an afterthought. This is a vision that, if realized, will have far-reaching implications not only for the United States, but for the entire globe. The stakes are incredibly high. In a world where the flow of goods, services, and capital is increasingly interconnected, any disruption to the global supply chain can have cascading effects across multiple sectors. That is why the protection of strategic shipping lanes, such as those in the Red Sea, is not just a military or economic issue. It is a matter of global stability. The president's unequivocal stance against those who would seek to control these routes is therefore a message to every nation that depends on them. By denying the Houthis, and by extension, any state or non-state actor that might support them, the ability to interfere with global shipping, the United States is taking a stand that resonates far beyond its own borders. In summary, the strategy is clear. We are engaged in a multifaceted campaign that addresses both immediate threats and systemic issues. On the international front, the focus is on denying the Houthis, and by extension, any nation that supports them, the ability to interfere with one of the world's most crucial shipping lanes. This is achieved through a series of targeted strikes designed to degrade their operational capacity until they are rendered incapable of continuing their disruptive actions. At the same time, the administration is applying economic pressure through tariffs and negotiating for a more balanced global trade system, one that protects American industries and workers. On the domestic front, there is a strict enforcement of immigration rules, ensuring that individuals who enter the country as guests adhere to the terms of their admission, and any deviation from those terms is met with swift action. This is not about suppressing free speech or targeting political views per se. It is about safeguarding national security and ensuring that the United States remains a place where the rule of law prevails. At the same time, the president's focus on domestic issues, such as the revitalization of American industry and the enforcement of immigration rules, reflects a broader philosophy: that the strength of a nation is ultimately measured by its ability to protect its own interests, while contributing to a stable and secure global order. In this view, national security and economic prosperity are inextricably linked. When one is compromised, the other is invariably affected. Thus, every decision, be it a targeted military strike, the imposition of tariffs, or the revocation of a visa, is made with the overarching goal of ensuring that American interests are never sidelined by short-term political considerations or ideological debates. Critics of these policies might argue that the approach is overly aggressive or even counterproductive. They might point to instances of what they perceive as excessive retaliation, or suggest that the focus on rebalancing trade relations is driven by emotion rather than strategic necessity. However, the administration's response to such criticisms is resolute. The president has repeatedly stressed that these measures are not designed to provoke unnecessary conflict, but are a necessary step toward correcting long-standing injustices. When he speaks of the need to reset the global trading system or to dismantle the operational capabilities of groups like the Houthis, he is speaking from a perspective that prioritizes long-term stability and national security over short-term appeasement. This brings us back to the original point. The campaign in the Red Sea, the economic measures, and the domestic security policies are all part of a comprehensive strategy. They are interrelated components of an overarching effort to protect American interests at every level. Whether it is the protection of a vital shipping lane, the enforcement of fair trade practices, or the strict regulation of who is allowed to enter the country as a guest, the message is consistent and unequivocal. America will no longer tolerate actions that undermine its security and prosperity. The president's rhetoric, often described as blunt and uncompromising, reflects the gravity of the challenges at hand. There is no room for half measures when the security of global shipping, the integrity of international trade, and the safety of the American people are at stake. The message to both domestic and international audiences is simple. If you seek to disrupt the established order, whether through acts of terrorism, unfair trade practices, or the violation of immigration rules, you will be met with a forceful and unyielding response. This is not a temporary policy shift. It is a long-term commitment to restoring balance and ensuring that America's interests are protected in every arena. As the administration moves forward with these policies, it remains cognizant of the fact that challenges will persist. The world is a complex place, and there are no easy solutions to the problems of terrorism, economic imbalance, and domestic unrest. Nevertheless, the approach is clear, relentless, systematic, and aimed at dismantling the capabilities of those who threaten global stability. The president's insistence on a proactive strategy, one that is as much about preventing future threats as it is about responding to current ones, underscores a broader vision of a world where the principles of fairness, security, and respect for national sovereignty are upheld. This vision, while ambitious, is rooted in the conviction that America must lead by example and take decisive action when its interests are at stake. In conclusion, the campaign in the Red Sea, the recalibration of global trade relations, and the strict enforcement of immigration policies are all manifestations of a larger strategy aimed at safeguarding American interests. It is a strategy that acknowledges the interconnected nature of global security and economic prosperity. As long as there are groups that seek to control vital shipping lanes or undermine the fairness of international trade, the administration's efforts will continue unabated. The president's message is unequivocal. We will not allow anyone, be it a militant group like the Houthis, a state sponsor like Iran, or any other actor, to dictate the terms of our security and economic future. These policies are not just reactive measures. They are part of a long-term vision for a stronger, safer, and more balanced America. And that, in the final analysis, is a message that resonates not just within our borders,